Welcome to the Me and D Show, where we talk about anything from stand-up comedy to horror movies and anything in between. But today we're going to be talking about
horror, but primarily my top 5 favorite horror films of all time. Not specifically what type of horror films in general.
Horror films in general.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm pretty excited.
I am pumped. A little scared, but I'm pumped. Pumped?
Yeah,
right
man.
on.
Like, pumped is pumped, man.
Pumped is pumped. I am ready for the top 5 movies that you have ready for us. Let's hear them.
Alrighty, let's do this. So number 5 out of my top 5 will have to be The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Love that movie. I do. I love that movie.
It's a fantastic film. It's definitely one of Wes Craven's hidden gems.
Yes.
When it comes to his filmography. Personally, the reason why I love that film is because it's different when it comes to a lot of horror films, because, some people will say, it would be a slasher film or it's more of a paranormal film. I think it's a little bit of both, but it's primarily about a doctor who visits this other country to find this miracle medicine, essentially.
Yes, and it's got like a zombie aspect to it, just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But it's primarily about this doctor trying to find this miracle medicine, and he runs into this guy who's kind of like the voodoo high priestess, essentially. Voodoo. And there's something going on in the village that he's visiting, and apparently the voodoo high priestess does not like visitors.
No visitors. He doesn't like that. No, he doesn't. And he drinks a potion, right?
Yeah,
he drinks. Yeah.
Now, the reason why it's number 5 is because the movie doesn't have that rewatchability that I want in a horror film.
Okay.
And it's not because it's terrible. It's not because it's like, ew, you know what I mean? But it's more about, it's not the kind of film that I would personally watch every day.
So personally for you, your opinion is that it just doesn't capture your attention to want to watch it again. It was a good movie.
It was a great movie.
Really enjoyed it.
And I strongly recommend everybody who watches our show should watch the movie.
Watch it.
It's a movie that you shouldn't miss out on at all.
Yes, you shouldn't miss it. It's great. I love the scene in there where he's trapped in the coffin. That's like, everyone's everyone's fear, being buried alive, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
And he can't really move at first, it's creepy. And it's pretty creepy.
And that's another thing I wanted to touch on briefly is that scene. I personally think that scene should have been the ending. Because when you watch the ending in the film, which I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, it's just I'm just okay, that's cool, but it's
so you felt like things were left undone.
It's not necessarily left undone. It's just I wish it would have ended at that scene, because that would have been a very intense, brave ending for a director.
I agree. It would have been intense. Do you think that if maybe the reason they didn't end that is because if they ended with him being buried alive, does that insinuate that there's going to be a follow-on movie?
No, I don't think so at all. It's
okay.
Just I personally think when it comes to a general audience, they want a happy ending. It's just
a happy ending in a horror movie?
I guess so. Or, see the bad guy.
I mean, it's possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible.
It's just a lot of people just want to see the bad guy lose, essentially. But it's sometimes they shouldn't always have to lose. But
there you go.
That's my number 5.
So bad guys should win, is what you're saying. Bad guys should win sometimes.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
I gotcha. That's good. It goes with the old adage, right? Good guys finish last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds cool. So that was number 5.
Yes.
Okay. What's number 4?
My number 4 is another Wes Craven film.
Okay.
A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Ooh, Nightmare on Elm Street. That's some scary stuff, man. That's super scary.
Yeah.
It is scary.
It's scary. It's scary.
It's scary. I mean, for the time that they had it, I think the effects that they had it was incredible. But I think what makes it unique for me is that there really are people out there who are serial killers. But then it has a paranormal aspect to it as well.
I definitely think it is one of the more creative horror villains out there.
Yes.
I would definitely say that for sure. However, the reason why it's my number 4
Freddy.
is because I'm not that big of a Freddy fanatic.
No,
I'm not.
you don't like the hand and the claw, you know, and the burnt face, man. The burnt face is pretty scary.
I can recognize how amazing Freddy Krueger is, and I can recognize how amazing the actor is.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
Robert Englund.
Yes. Scary dude.
And I love the first movie.
Yes.
I love the second movie. I love the third movie.
And 3.
But the fourth movie and onward, it really lost me.
Okay. I mean, but a lot of movies, I mean, when they have sequels to them, it tends to kind of lose its speed, you know, in there, which is pretty normal. But for it to have 3 movies in a row that did pretty well, and then it just kind of, you know, slowly goes downhill after that, you got to say that's a win, right?
Oh, yeah. And not only that, and here's a little bit of an argument to present. This is what a lot of horror fans argue about. Which Nightmare on Elm Street film is better? The first film or the third film, which is Dream Warriors?
I gotta say the first film. I love the first one. Big lover of number 1.
If I had to choose, it would be the third movie.
Why? Why the third movie though?
Well, number 1, it takes place in a mental hospital.
Okay.
And it's literally all the kids in the hospital are the only kids left from Elm Street.
I see. Okay.
And number 3, it's Dokken. You can't go wrong with Dokken.
You're talking about the music.
Yeah.
The music.
The rock band Dokken.
I like Dokken too. I mean, I like them as well. But I mean, the first movie, come on, man. The first movie, I mean,
it is definitely a landmark film.
It is. It's pretty awesome.
It's what launched. It's what helped launch Wes Craven's career.
Yes.
Because he did, you know, The Hills Have Eyes and The Last House on the Left before.
Which were great movies too.
They were considered video nasties, but that's a conversation for another video.
Another time.
But it's just a brief little history of like, okay, he went from this to now a Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's interesting transition. But
sounds like maybe you like the third one because you like the story more.
I love the story the most.
Love the story. Okay, I got you. Well, that makes sense.
But that's my number 4, guys.
Number 4. What's number 3?
Number 3 is John Carpenter's The Fog. Okay,
we talking about the remake or the original?
The original.
The original.
Let's be very, very detailed here.
Gotcha. Okay.
Detailed. Here's the thing. The remake, it sucks. It's terrible.
What? You don't like the remake?
It's so terrible.
I don't know. I don't know if I can agree with that.
The acting is bad. The special effects are bad. It's poorly executed.
All right. I'm not a director of any kind of horror movies or any other type of movies. You know, I mean, I'm a fan of horror movies and I watch them. And I just saw the remake of The Fog. I got to tell you, I have to be honest. I liked it. I liked it. Okay. I guess I can see from someone who makes horror movies and looks at, you know, the technical aspects and all that, you can pick that apart. I can't because I don't really know the difference.
I got you, but I would definitely explain to you why.
Okay,
I love the original.
Let's hear it.
Number 1, after the success of Halloween, you know, John Carpenter was asked to do another horror film.
Okay,
and he came up with the idea for The Fog, and that resonates with me personally because before I lived in LA, I lived in a small town on the coast of Oregon.
Oh,
so. And the movie takes place in this small town on the West Coast.
Okay, got it.
And it scared me a little more as a child because I lived on the coast.
Gotcha.
And I actually grew up with an urban legend about a ghost ship out in the ocean.
Ooh, ghost ship.
You know,
also a good movie.
That's a good movie. For another video anyway. But
another video.
You know, it just resonated with me a little more. Not only that, but the way it was shot in the original and the way it was the color palette and how they kept the
color wheel,
the crewmen, I guess you would say, from the ship in the shadows.
But you're talking about the urban legend right now. You're not talking about The Fog.
No, yeah, the urban legend and The Fog are almost the exact same thing. That's what I'm saying.
I got you. I understand. I'm following now.
You know, it's, you know, both have a very similar story. So I was just like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. But with the movie anyway, you know, they keep the sailors, if you know what I'm talking about, in the dark. They don't really show what they look like.
Very true. That's true.
Really makes it intense, I think. And it makes you wonder, like, what do they look like? Who are they? You know, it just builds up that mystery of like trying to figure out, are they alive? Are they dead? Which you find out the answer at the end, which, by the way, like I said before, you got to watch the movie.
Okay, so you really like the story about it, and you like the suspense factor.
Yeah,
that's in there.
And
okay,
plus,
I can think that.
Did his own music for this film as well. He also did his own music for Halloween.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, you know, I think his music really makes him a unique director because he does music.
I agree.
The only movie that I know he did not do the music for was The Thing.
Okay.
But that's
good to know. I mean, I didn't know that. I had no idea about that.
But again, that's a whole another video to talk about.
Another thing.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just not only that, but it just scared me as a kid. So it kind of earns points for me.
You're scared.
I was horrified.
Scared. Scary stuff. Okay, so what's the next one? What's the third one?
So number 2, actually.
Number 2. I'm sorry, I can't count. All right.
Number 2 is going to be Phantasm 2.
Phantasm 2 for number 2.
Yes.
Number 2. Phantasm 2.
Here's the thing, man.
2.
A lot of Phantasm fans call Phantasm 2 the Terminator 2 of the Phantasm franchise.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Because a lot of people think that Phantasm 2 is better than the original. Which, again, my answer is going to be in my number 1 spot, if you kind of spoils it a little bit. But
so Phantasm 1 to you is better than number 2.
Oh, yeah. But again, that's going to be later on in the discussion.
Okay.
But to get this out of the way, Phantasm 2, it basically was like, its statement is like, okay, we're going to take everything great about Phantasm 2 and we're just going to ramp it up to 11. And we're going to make this more action-packed, more action-oriented, have horror elements to it because it's a horror movie, but have a lot of action to it. Because a little brief history, Phantasm, the original, came out in 1979 and it was filmed in 1978.
Okay.
So the movie was a huge success when it came out.
Okay.
And, well, 9 years go by. 9 years.
9 years.
Nothing. And all of a sudden, Universal Studios, out of all companies here in LA, announced Phantasm 2.
Boom. Phantasm 2.
But you also got to realize this was around the time when the horror renaissance started picking up in the late 80s. So, you know, not only that, it was Phantasm 2, Child's Play 2, Army of Darkness.
Got a lot of 2s going on.
Yeah. Well, Army of Darkness is actually the 3rd film in the Evil Dead series.
Oh, that was number 3. That was the odd person out.
But but it's, you know, Phantasm 2 was born because the president of the company at the time was a huge horror fan, and he purchased a lot of horror properties to basically release into theaters because he wanted to make money on these horror films. So that's why he purchased Chucky, and that's why Universal is known for having Chucky, is because he bought the rights from MGM to do Child's Play 2.
Did not know that.
Because Child's Play, the first one's owned by MGM, not Universal. Universal did Child's Play 2 and onward.
Oh, I did not know that.
But
interesting to know.
Besides that, when Phantasm 2 came out, it was a big hit for financially because the movie only costed $3 million to make.
Okay, and in movie terms, that's pretty cheap.
Well,
that's really cheap.
Yes, but it's also the biggest budget in the whole franchise.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Did not know that.
Phantasm has always been an indie horror film series. It's always been made independently. The first movie was made on nothing, like literally nothing. And yeah, it's I looked up to that because it shows that if this indie filmmaker can make it big doing this, anybody can. But it takes a lot of work, you know. Okay,
so quick question off the top of my head for the Phantasm 2. Do you think people prefer that because if it was made 9 years later, then the technology basically was better at that time than it was before? Maybe that's why people prefer it?
Maybe. I think it's primarily because of the fact that they made the tall man, who's the villain.
Oh, so you think it's more character based?
Well, yeah, because they made him the big baddie in the second film. Like like video game logic. You want to have that kind of logic. He's basically the big boss.
Gotcha. Okay.
essentially. And
Boss.
you know, there's characters like Reggie Bannister. Those characters, there's characters like Reggie Bannister, and there's also Mike. And then there's the character, well, not Jodie, I was in the first movie, but Mike and Reggie are like the two main characters in the Phantasm series.
Okay.
And those guys are like bread and butter, and they're so awesome together. And having them two fight the Tall Man, it's pretty cool. And the Tall Man was played by the unfortunately late Angus Scrimm. He passed away in 2016. But he played the Tall Man excellently.
Right on.
And that's my number 2.
Number 2. Okay.
And you guys,
what's number 1? Number 1. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Number 1. What's up with number 1? I'm very excited to hear about number 1.
Number 1 is obviously the first Phantasm.
Okay. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. First Phantasm.
I love the first movie because the music, primarily, it's just it's very, very 70s.
Very 70s.
Very 70s.
Do you have the soundtrack?
I don't have it on me specifically.
Well, I'm telling you, did you ever buy it?
Oh, no.
No.
You can look it up on YouTube. It's on there.
It's on YouTube.
So,
gotcha. Everything's on YouTube.
But it's not the kind of music you expect from a horror film. It doesn't make it feel necessarily horrifying. It's just, music is just so beautifully done.
Okay, but so why doesn't it feel like horror movie music?
It's more like whimsical, more. So it's more gothic.
Okay, you mean so more like goth fantasy kind of thing?
Kind of like that. It has like that goth fantasy kind of feel to it.
Okay,
but
all right.
For some odd reason, it just works. It just works with the movie.
Okay,
and not only that, but they made the Tall Man, unlike in Phantasm 2, they made him more of like he was very unpredictable. Like, you didn't know what he was going to do. He was more intimidating because he was more like, it messed with your mind a little more.
Okay, so you didn't know what to anticipate while you were watching the movie.
Yeah.
So it was unpredictable. That sounds like a pretty interesting character to me.
Well, yeah, and not only that, you don't know where he's from. He just shows up out of nowhere.
Oh.
You don't know what he is.
He's the mystery man.
If you don't know if he's human or not. You don't know if he's like from another dimension, another planet. Like, you don't know.
Oh.
All you know is that he is abnormally, like just a really, really, really strong person. But yet he's really skinny and he's tall.
Skinny.
So it's very abnormal.
Tall.
And hence the name, the Tall Man.
Abnormal, skinny, tall guy that's mysterious.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not only that, he acts suspicious. He talks suspicious. I think the first time you ever meet the Tall Man officially, there's a scene where the character Jodie is walking through this mausoleum.
Oh, okay.
And then it's kind of building its suspense, and someone grabs his shoulder, and the Tall Man is behind him going, "The funeral is about to begin, sir."
All right.
Like that. And it's the way he comes across, it's like, it's not normal. Like, no one talks like that.
No one talks like
that.
No
one does.
Why are you talking like
that?
Yeah,
like nobody does this while they're looking at you. You know what I mean? But, that's what's so great about that character is it's just like, you're wondering, like,
what is this guy?
Yeah, who is this guy?
Yeah. All right. That sounds cool.
But that's my number 1.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So last question for you. Indie films versus studio films. Do you have a preference?
It depends on the movie, because there's some really good directors.
Getting deep.
There's some good directors out there who make good movies when it comes to studio.
Okay.
Like Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, of course.
And, Roger Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's Francis Ford Coppola.
I got you. You're talking about directors. I'm talking about films. Do you have a preference? Do you have a preference between indie or studio?
Well, I'm saying it really depends on the film and the director, because, sometimes the studio system will say, do whatever the hell you want. And because of that, they can make something that's really, really good and different.
So you prefer a film that is more director oriented, that he basically has
full control.
Full control of final cut, really.
Yes, and also creative decisions. Because a lot of the times, that's the reason why I also really, really, really like indie films. Just tad bit more, not by much. Because of the fact that the studio really likes to get involved.
Well, you got to think too. I mean, they're there to make money. I mean, it's still a business.
Yeah.
You know, they're not there to make films for the fun of it because, I mean, they cost a lot of money.
But that's like, for example, there's a lot of films out there that have director's cuts that are definitely a lot better than the theatrical cut.
Okay, but they're directing it. They're there from the beginning to the end of the movie, so they know where they want the movie to go to creatively.
Yes,
you know,
but unfortunately, like I said, the studios can get involved and it messes with the director's vision, and there's sometimes conflict, and that can result in the director unfortunately leaving, which has happened.
Okay,
it has happened.
But you are talking about from a creative standpoint. You also have to think about. This is the marketing side of me coming out. When you look at the studio, they have to think about their reputation at the same time. So I'm not trying to say that.
I guess, but it's just.
I'm not trying to say that the studio is always right, but they got to think about their reputation because they have to make other movies as well. You know, and people, whether they realize it or not, they're expecting a certain vibe from the studio.
Yeah. I will say, though, there is one company that I definitely think gives a lot of directors freedom. And it's a fairly new company. It's called A24.
I've heard of A24.
Yeah, A24 is like mainly an indie film studio.
Yes, it is.
But it's so world-renowned that it's no longer really considered an indie film studio anymore because it's so well-known. And now they're making big-budget films.
Yeah, because they've done so well.
Yeah, so I think that A24 kind of lost its feel to it a little bit, but they still make good movies. Like my favorite film they ever did was The Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse,
with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson.
All right, so we're getting into a different area here, but it sounds like you do like the indie stuff, but you're looking for something a little bit more. It's got like a grunge feel.
Well, that's why I like indie films.
Yeah, kind of gritty, right?
Yeah, because a lot of indie filmmakers have that creative freedom. They can do what they want to do.
Very exciting.
And because of that, when they create their vision, it seems a little bit more passionate because you can tell when you watch a movie what a studio made because it's so basic. That's the problem with Hollywood especially, is the fact that they stick to this template and they think, oh, this is safe. People will like it. We'll make a good buck, and then we'll just move on from it.
Right.
And when people have that attitude, it really reflects in your movie, and it just makes it feel so vague and typical. You're like, okay, I've seen this before.
But so in a perfect world, you know, you really want to balance between creativity and the business part of it. Not one really outweighing the other, right?
But unfortunately, this is not a perfect world.
It's not. It's not.
And unfortunately, business really overrides creativity when it comes to the, not studio system, that's no longer in existence, but just how a lot of companies are. Because a lot of film companies are not owned by film people. They're owned by other big corporations.
I got you, because they have the dollars and the money. Now, I'm not a studio person. I don't know anything about studios, so I'm not going to claim that I do. But business-wise, I mean, in order for a business to stay afloat and to keep doing what they want to do, the dollars have got to be there. So
and then that's the unfortunate part, is that at the end of the day, the money is what makes the final decision.
Well, it has to, in order for them to keep the lights on and for them to afford for the equipment. So I totally get that. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
From a creative, I think this is the most difficult part for all creatives. And it doesn't matter if you're a comedian or if you're a director or an actor or anything like that. It's when you're in that creative mindset, it's very difficult to accept that the business part is a huge part of it. Because without that budget and without the equipment to be able to pay for all these things, then the creative part is not able to be shown to the audience, you know. And that's difficult. It really is. I mean, because these films, whether it's a play or whether it happens to be on the big screen or not, it requires dollars to be there. It just does. And it's for creatives, when you really have that creative instinct like we do, it's hard to accept and understand that the business part is just as big as the creative part is.
And it's really rough too when they give you a small budget, you know, because I think the one company that's known for giving small budgets for films is Blumhouse.
Right, but I think this is where the creativity comes into in the gritty part that you're talking about.
Well, yeah, actually, I was watching an interview with Jason Blum, and he said that the reason why he gives directors small budgets is because when you give someone a small budget, it makes their creativity much more intense. It makes you
agree.
It makes you become more creative than what you originally were before.
Totally agree.
Now you're put in a position to think, okay, how can I do this while doing this?
Yes,
and it makes you. I think with time, it makes you a better problem solver.
No, I totally agree. I absolutely
So
I totally agree.
I worked with small budgets, so I've learned to kind of think to myself, how can I do it, but on a smaller scale?
Smaller.
Because here's the thing: when it comes to filmmaking,
Small.
you can make anything small look big.
Small.
You know what I mean? You can make anything small look big because it's a camera.
So let's do a recap on the top 5 real quick. Okay, so what was the 5th one?
The 5th one is Serpent of the Rainbow.
Number 4?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
3?
Number 3 is John Carpenter's The Fog.
Boom. Okay, and we had a little bit of a difference between, you know, the remake and the original. I got you, but that's okay. I mean, everybody's got to have their likes and dislikes, right?
Yeah.
What's number 2?
Phantasm 2.
Phantasm 2. And number 1 spot?
Phantasm 1979.
Boom. And I think that's what we're going to leave you with today, man. Phantasm 1979, right?
Yep.
All righty. Hey, thanks for watching. We really do appreciate it. And we will see you next Monday.
And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Boom. Okay. All right.